because the Astros don't deserve any happiness in life. I think the Rays, I would say, are a bit more of a underdog to me, just considering the history.
You know, the Eagles had a
Yeah.
competitive game, but still, look at their record. They're not doing good this season.
The NBA, what a bubble! I mean, 0 positive tests in 3 months. That's incredible. The only league to be spotless. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Keep Your Score with Josh and Ray, a podcast show dedicated to bringing analysis of record sports and sports around the country. I'm Josh.
And I'm Ray.
And in today's show, we give our predictions for the World Series and recap Week 6 of NFL football. So, I guess we can start off with the World Series. The Tampa Bay Rays versus the LA Dodgers. So I was just reading. These are actually the two best teams in baseball. They were the best team. Sorry, the Rays were the best team in the AL, and LA was the best team in the NL during the regular season. And there was really no upsets in the playoffs because both teams made it all the way through. The Rays beat my Yankees, unfortunately, and that was sad. But they did beat the Astros, which I was happy about because the Astros don't deserve any happiness in life. And yeah, so I think this is I think it's an even matchup. What do you think, Ray?
Yeah, so I definitely agree that it's an even matchup. Because, I mean, you look at both of these teams, and the Rays are a really good team. And I believe I picked them to go to the World Series in our last podcast. But then you look at the Dodgers, and the Dodgers have been dominant for the past couple years. And to be honest, I don't know if I can make a prediction on which team's going to win because both are really, really good. And I don't really see a clear advantage for one team or the other. But, when you look at the series that they just had in the league championship series, while the best teams ultimately won, there were some definitely exciting moments in the series. You had the Astros and Rays who, with the Astros almost coming back to reappear in the World Series, and obviously that didn't happen. But also in the NL, you had the Dodgers almost choking and not making it to the World Series either. So there were definitely a lot of exciting and unexpected moments.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that because LA, they're back in the World Series for the third time in 4 seasons, which is the first time that's been done since the Yankees did that from 2001 to 2003. But obviously they're not a bulletproof team, as you were just talking about. They almost choked in the playoffs. So, and the Rays, they're a young, hungry team. I think, they haven't been to the World Series since 2008. I think they have a bit more of a chip on their shoulder, because LA is one of the most prolific franchises in like baseball history. They're up there with the Yankees and the Cardinals. So I don't know. I think the Rays, I would say, are a bit more of a underdog to me, just considering the history. But as far as this season goes, I mean, on LA side, you have Kershaw, obviously. He's always gonna be a huge deal on the mound. I think he is one of my favorite pitchers I've ever watched. I think he's very reliable, and he's just proven himself time and time again. Even though he has struggled in the playoffs, as we were just mentioning with the Dodgers, but I think I would pick the Dodgers considering the history and just their experience at this level. But the Rays, I can't count them out. I try to count them out against my Yankees. That didn't work. It was a close series and went to Game 5. But I think I would say I would take the Dodgers in 6 games.
Interesting. Yeah. So you brought up Clayton Kershaw, and he's definitely a really Hall of Fame pitcher in the regular season. But where it gets interesting is when you look at his postseason stuff. We've seen time and time again that he has just failed to perform, sufficiently in the postseason. I think that he had some troublesome moments in the 2020 playoffs as well. So I think he's going in game one, if I'm not mistaken, of the World Series.
Yes.
So that's going to be a good matchup. I forget who the Rays are putting up, but that's definitely going to be a fun game to watch. But you know what? I'm just really excited for the series, considering, MLB was able to get to this point in general.
Right.
They had some scares along the way with COVID, with the Marlins early on and the Cardinals, I think, around halfway into the season. But you know what? They made it. It looks like they're going to finish this thing out because the bubble is doing pretty well right now. So I'm happy to see that.
Yeah, it's nice that you say that they got there. They definitely had their scares with COVID. The only league that was really spotless with COVID was the NBA. Each other league has had their issues, but the good news is it hasn't been to the point that they've had to cancel everything, which was our worst fear. Making it to the end of the season is a victory for the whole league at this point, which is a much different way of, seeing it than years past. But that's just our reality now. Our new reality is being grateful that the sport is being played in the first place. So that's really what it's all about at the moment. But yeah, obviously Kershaw, I think that's kind of the reason why I am rooting for him. It's just because he struggled so much in the playoffs. I just want to see him go out there and pitch a great game, in game one, make a statement. Just not that I'm a Dodgers fan or anything. It would just be nice. I would just be happy for him. But, and then obviously LA has Cody Bellinger, who is also another premier all-star player. They've got guys that have done it before. They have experience and they have the skill. Considering that baseball is so psychological and mental, that's why I keep going back to the experience factor. I think that's just such a big deal in this sport, especially. And that's why I kind of am expecting the Dodgers to take this one. I think this year the Rays developed a lot as a team, and this is an extremely important year for the organization, and it's a great year to build on. But I would be surprised if they beat the Dodgers in a 7-game series.
Yeah, and I think we should also look at the fact that I believe the Rays almost allowed the Astros to come back in the ALCS. So, right. They may not be the hottest team right now.
And the Yankees also. They almost let the Yankees beat them. So, yeah, both teams.
They don't have as much playoff experience as the Dodgers. Considering the Dodgers have been in the World Series twice in the past couple of years. And they've gotten far into the playoffs. But like you said, we're just grateful for sports to actually make it this far. It's an exciting time to watch, especially with the winter coming up. With that being said, it's also pretty exciting to watch the NFL season develop. So let's talk about that next, Josh. What do you think were some, I know you're a Jets fan, but what are some takeaways that you have from week 6 for some of the local games?
Yeah. What are the takeaways about the Jets? Well, okay. So 24-0 loss to Miami, okay? Tua makes his debut for the Dolphins, which is the most interesting part of the game to me. It's not even about my own team. It's about the other team. Yeah, honestly, what do I have to say about the Jets at this point? I read an open letter that a fan wrote on this fan website about the Jets, and he wrote it to the owner of the team. His name is Christopher Johnson. He's part of the Johnson & Johnson pharmacy family. They rolling in money. But he's kind of talking about how the Jets just don't put in enough effort to make a winning culture, a winning organization. You can see that there's Adam Gase is still the coach. Why has he not been fired yet? Nobody knows. It's just there's really no explanation. I mean, there's no logical explanation. We traded Le'Veon Bell to the. Oh no, sorry, we cut Le'Veon Bell, and then he signed with the Chiefs, which was just bizarre. I don't know why we cut him. I'm happy for Le'Veon that he got to leave. This team is just a disgrace. But and we traded one of our defensive tackles, which was whatever, interesting. But at this point, they're gonna have to make a decision. Gase is gonna be gone eventually. They're gonna have to make a decision whether they're gonna roll with Sam Darnold long term, or if they're gonna tank for the first pick to pick Trevor Lawrence, quarterback out of Clemson. It's a big prospect, so we're gonna see. I mean, and then I was actually looking at the Giants game. They got their first win of the year, so that's good for them against the Washington football team. They're now 1-5. They're the only. That was the only win by a New York football team this year so far. So that's interesting. It kind of goes to show how terrible they're doing across the board. But yeah, with the Giants at 1-5, they're probably still contending in the NFC East.
You know what, man? This, we talked about it last time, but I think it's just we definitely have to mention this NFC East is bad. It's just really
it's
bad.
So funny to me whenever I look at the standings.
It's kind of a disgrace to the sport, because when you look at the teams in it, I mean, goodness, guys, like there's just no competitive nature in it. So, and yes, the Eagles had a competitive game, but still, look at their record. They're not doing good this season. And that I think it's going to change a little bit as the season goes on. I think the division is going to get a little bit more competitive, but overall, I think it's just going to have the same depressing feel to it for the remainder of the season.
And I'm looking at the standings. The Cowboys are in first at 2-4. The Eagles are second at 1-4-1, so they're a half game behind. Right? And the Cowboys, okay, they just got destroyed on Monday Night Football by the Cardinals. Because the Cowboys, Dak Prescott's out for the year, okay? And that sucks. That's very unlucky. Dak's a good player. But you'd have to think that they're not going to win the division with Andy Dalton as the quarterback the rest of the year, considering that their defense is already not good. I don't see how the Eagles can't win this division. I know they're 1-4-1. That's not good, but I just don't understand. And just in comparison with the other three teams, the Cowboys are injured across the board, not just Dak. I think they had like 12 players on IR. The announcers were talking about. The Giants and Washington, they're just so bad. If those teams win the division, that's just incredible. I would just be beside myself. But anything's possible in 2020. So,
yeah. I mean, I guess when you say that, I realize that the Eagles do have a chance. They did put up a competitive game against the Ravens. Ultimately, what matters in the standings, though, are the wins and losses, and they lost. So we'll see as it goes on. But you're right. Cowboys aren't looking too great with Dak out. Andy Dalton's not doing a terrible job, but I don't really think that he can lead them, into the playoffs, let alone far into the playoffs. But we'll see as the weeks go on.
Yeah. Obviously NFC East pretty bad. The Jets are pretty bad. So, in terms of local New York football, not great. But for you, the Eagles, I still think they're going to win the division, even though they have one win so far this season, and it's about to be week 7. That just goes to show how bad the division is. But also just a kind of a disclaimer about the World Series. I forgot to mention that by the time this comes out, we'll probably see games 1 and 2 played already. So we'll see how that plays out at that point. But obviously we can also mention the NBA. The Lakers won the championship. That was their 17th championship in their team history. LeBron James' 4th. And again, just going with the theme of being grateful for sports, I think the NBA, what a season. what a bubble. I mean, 0 positive tests in 3 months. That's incredible. The only league to be spotless, including overseas. I mean, soccer had some COVID cases, in like the English Premier League and stuff. But the NBA just did a fantastic job of that. And I think they really set the standard for the rest of sports to follow in terms of how to operate in the COVID-19 era.
Yeah. The NBA definitely did a great job. I think a lot of people are liking what Adam Silver is doing with the league. And the bubble is just kind of another example of that. And I think you're right. I think the MLB is kind of following in their footsteps, maybe looking at what they've done and trying to replicate that, because obviously it worked. And listen, the NBA season was long. It stretched out until October, and ultimately I think that was for the TV revenue. But you know what, they gave fans something to watch during COVID, and a lot of people enjoyed it. So like we said earlier, I'm just grateful for these things to be happening, for the NBA Finals to happen, for Week 7 of the NFL to happen, and for the World Series to happen. And hopefully we'll eventually get to the Super Bowl too, barring any terrible COVID-induced situations.
Right.
But I'm happy for it.
I think just thinking back to around March when COVID really started hitting. We just had no idea what sports were going to look like for the rest of the future, the immediate future. And now, back when sports were all canceled, now that we've got them all back in some capacity, I think it's pretty amazing. And it's really a testament to the leagues. It hasn't been perfect, but, they've been kind of improvising and learning along the way. And it's the new normal, as people are calling it. So we're just going to have to roll with it. And it really puts into perspective how lucky we are to be able to watch sports in general and enjoy them. And obviously with Rutgers football starting this Saturday, and then the basketball season in November, we're gonna get to watch college. So yeah, I'm pretty optimistic in general. I think people are starting to get more of a feel for how to handle COVID. Obviously, there's no cure or anything like that yet, but it's a bit more manageable from the sports perspective, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Hopefully the start of the Rutgers football season goes well in terms of COVID. We have the first game coming up this Saturday, and hopefully Rutgers pulls out a win. I don't think it's likely. But you know what? This is the Schiano era, as some people are calling it. So let's see what some of the hype is about. See what he does with this team this season. But it's going to be exciting to watch.
Yeah, if Schiano can keep Rutgers at least competitive in Big Ten games this season, well, obviously they're all Big Ten games this season. They're all conference games. If they can keep them from not being blown out, I think I would be happy with that. As low of a standard that is, considering where Rutgers football has been the past few years, it can only go up.
That's true.
Can only go up from there.
That's
so
true.
As long as the games are watchable and there's teams shows a sign of a pulse and heart, then we're looking at some improvements there. So we'll see how it plays out. Saturday, Michigan State, opening day. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. And with that, yep.
Oh, I was just gonna say I think that's a good place to wrap it up. So that's all for today. Make sure to join us next time on Keeping Score for more sports updates. And make sure to follow the Daily Targum on our Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube for more content.